Welcome to the Manufacturing Shakeup. We're your hosts, Ellen Feldman-Ornato
and Jenny Drescher. We're talking with dynamic women from across the manufacturing scene in Connecticut.
It's a well-known fact that Connecticut has some of the highest energy costs in the nation. But there's a lot more that goes into the cost of doing business. And part of that is looking at what are the ways that we can cut costs where it makes sense for our business and it makes sense for the planet. Today we have with us Rene Parrinello from Legrand, a company based in West Hartford, and she's going to be talking with us about sustainability and the measures that they're taking at her company to make her company a better corporate citizen. So welcome, Rene.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so exciting to have you here. So can you start off by just telling us, your position as corporate sustainability analyst? How did that come about?
Yes, it's been a 10-year-long journey. Started as Environmental Product Declaration Coordinator, which is this little document that showcases environmental impacts for our products. And 10 years later, in a corporate role, so supporting all of our businesses, all our subsidiaries to help document our impacts.
Interesting. And when you say document your impacts, what does that mean?
Yeah. So when we look at our products, they have environmental impacts from the raw material extraction, the manufacturing of the product at our facilities, and then to distribution, installation at the final site within a building, the use of the product if it's an active energy consuming product, and then at the end of life, whether that's going to landfill or recycling or even reuse. So it's looking at that whole life cycle of our products to understand what is the environmental impact, so that when customers are working on a green building or have their own corporate sustainability requirements for what global warming potential their products can have when they're procuring products for projects, they'll be able to make an informed decision with this documentation.
I love the idea of this, and it feels very modern to me, right? I mean, if we think about manufacturing, we're looking at a legacy now. Here we are in 2025. It's a legacy of 150 years of just let's make the things. And what's very different about the lens that Legrand is putting on the way that we make things is just baking in the thinking. Sustainability strikes me as, well, it's bake in the thinking about how can we do this better? How can we make it work longer? And I think sometimes the business case for sustainability gets a little lost in this space. Can you inform us a little about, from a manufacturer's point of view, what are some of the key things that are the business case for sustainability? I mean, I think people care about the environment, so there's obviously that. But what should I be thinking about if I'm a plant manager?
Yeah. So from an energy efficiency perspective, if you have a product that performs better and is more efficient, then that certainly operationally saves you money throughout the duration of you're using the product. And when you're looking at what materials you're using, where you're sourcing them from, you'll look at what is the lead time to get those materials, what is the cost for a domestic product versus international. So there's a lot of different considerations when you're looking at environmental impact, responsible sourcing. So there's a whole plethora of fields that you can go to when you're looking at sustainability in business and engineering, manufacturing. So it's a lot of different things that you have to consider.
That sounds overwhelming. Where do I start? What's one simple thing that I could try on to learn about to start?
Yeah, I think one thing that a lot of schools are doing is they're integrating sustainability into a lot of existing programs, from business, engineering, environmental science, and even more social sciences. There's a lot more, how do we have like an environmental justice perspective of when we're deciding where to build manufacturing sites or procure from certain countries, like taking that into consideration. So looking at different courses if you're a student that include a sustainability lens, and if you're out of college, looking for companies that either in a job description mention sustainability, or they themselves, the company, have a sustainability page and they talk about social responsibility, environmental impact, or whatever it may be. That's a good sign that you're working for a company that will care about those bigger picture issues with sustainability and will be trying to embed it into the roles. But if you're looking for more granular, like, you're interested in manufacturing, you're interested in a certain element of business, then taking courses, there's a lot of graduate programs or masters, different certificates that give you practical experience in these sorts of issues, these sorts of topics. So a lot of different areas right now.
I have like I had the pleasure of getting a tour of your facility when the new sustainability program was launched. And one of the things that fascinated me, because I think every manufacturer uses this product, is, can you describe what you do with pallets? Because that one thing, I can't think of a manufacturing facility that doesn't use wooden pallets.
Yeah, so there are a lot of regulatory issues with pallets, from like what type of coatings are inside of wood pallets, and wood pallets can break down. So using plastic pallets, they have higher usability or reusability, and they're lighter weight. So when you have 10 pallets with a whole bunch of products on them, that's less weight that the truck has to haul around. So that equates to lower environmental impact per truckload. So it's a little outside of my realm of expertise, but that's just one small way that just a simple change of what material you're using for something you use all the time can save a lot in impact.
So is your job, to go around your facility and look for where are the incremental changes we can make? Or is there somebody in your facility? Because I think there are a lot of manufacturers out there who think I either have to have a huge sustainability program or nothing at all. And it's not really, like, I hear the word, but I don't know what it means. Like, can anybody who sees themselves as an environmental advocate or a change advocate, or even wants to just help their company save money, like, how did they get started doing this thing? Or you have a point person there whose job it is to do that, right?
We have a whole team of point people, from operations within our sourcing departments, within engineering and marketing. So we have a lot of people. It certainly takes an army to help all the different issues of sustainability to push things forward, and also to document sort of our baseline impacts and our baseline of what processes we're doing right now. So there's a lot of check the list audits that we do. So when you're looking at like the low hanging fruit for each of those different departments, you can say, okay, do we have a recycling program? Do we have like the most energy efficient LED light bulbs? All these sorts of elements. I think there's a lot of resources from like the Environmental Protection Agency, a lot of federal organizations that have checklists to help people who don't have any experience and don't have any degrees in sustainability to have a place to start.
So Ollie, the podcast cat, wants to know about what are the skills involved in leading in sustainability if you're working inside this space? Because, I'm thinking about all our friends out there who work in manufacturing and how hard they work to develop their leadership skills, things like influencing or delegating or just basic communications. When you look at yourself as a leader in this space inside your own company, what are the skills that you think serve you the best in helping usher projects through, or open up eyes, because so much of this space is invented? Like, what are the skills that you have found are critical? Like, I'm talking people and leadership skills. What have been the hottest things that you've developed that support that?
Yeah, I think most obviously the skill that you need is communication, because you're talking with a lot of people, a lot of different people. And I am not an engineer by trade and don't have expertise in sourcing and all these different things, but I have to have a curiosity, which can be another sort of developed skill. Curiosity for why do we do things this way? Like kind of pushing back against business as usual and trying to understand, are we doing this because we saw that it makes the most sense, it saved us the most money, or is it just what we've always done and we didn't really think about doing it any other way? So I think communication, talking with different folks, not being scared to kind of push back on why do we do it this way. I think that
Right. So really there's a piece of this that is about being willing to question and interrupt our assumptions about what we think is happening. That seems important, because that's not always the easiest thing in the world for humans to do.
absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, and you're talking usually with executive leadership or people in pretty high positions. And if you're an intern or someone sort of the lower rungs of the corporate ladder, then you may be intimidated. But I think people who don't have business experience or manufacturing experience can bring some of the most insightful elements to like useful disruption. Like they question things that people take advantage of, but they bring up really good points. And maybe we don't have to use primary material. We can incorporate recycled content. Like, is there a big cost to that? Like, let's investigate this avenue. So
Yeah. I'm curious, what would you say to a young person? I heard you say, there is coursework for young people, at the high school or college level. But what are the other things that, like, if I'm an emerging leader, say, like early career, 20s, maybe folks that are kind of in your age bracket, what are the ways that folks can practice that lens of useful disruption? I'm stealing that. I love that. Useful disruption, right? Not for its own sake, but for this, what are the ways because your work, let's just signpost this for our friends in the audience, is that this work is really largely invented, right? Sustainability is a new field. So a lot of what you're doing is this constant process of breaking new ground, right? There's no model for X, Y, or Z in how we do things. So that useful disruption and that let's invent this anew is also paired with, wait, nobody's done this before. How do we even start to think about this? What are the best practices for cultivating that kind of thinking if you're early career?
yeah, that's a great question. What I did when I just started with Legrand is I kept a journal or PowerPoint, whatever you use to take notes, and any article, podcast, like newsletter I read that someone was doing something really innovative, I took a note of it and kind of jotted like, who should I show this to within my organization? Like, who would find this interesting or relevant to whatever work, whatever project they're doing? And I kind of just developed this portfolio of different product or packaging innovations that people were doing. I remember Ecovative, who does the mushroom mycelium packaging, that was on there before they started really picking up with larger customers, and a couple other like 3D 3D printing. There was a lot of 3D printing and how can you quickly innovate product design using that very quick, efficient technology. So you can try out different shapes and form factors to see if your product could maybe use less material, if you use this shape, if you shave off this corner, that kind of thing. So a lot of different interesting things that I had found that I would show it to someone, maybe it didn't go anywhere, but if an engineer found it interesting, maybe they would keep it in their back pocket, and 5 years down the line, they're like, I remember reading about something. Maybe I could call that vendor, investigate that myself.
So your Johnny Appleseed is really what you're saying. You're like planting little seeds along the way. You're like keeping your own record of where could this seed go and who might want that seed, and just sort of doing a lot of seed planting. That seems really important to play the sustainability game overall, because humans innately fear rocking the boat, right? And change. So that all these small moves strike me as critical.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for you. Have you encountered any resistance?
Yeah, of course. It's not just a matter of poking holes and everything falls down. It's definitely an iterative process. Sometimes you won't get the okay from leadership when you suggest, like, maybe we should incorporate environmental impact into our product development process, or maybe we should go this way or one way for an existing process. And it again is just about planting that seed, and maybe a couple of years down the line, when you work with a customer who really cares about sustainability, and you can sort of wave that example to them and say, see, this customer cares. Just foreshadowing that a lot more requests like this will come. So you got to just keep like a vision of where you think we should be going as a company, and kind of just have that be your guide in any conversations you have, any investigations you have, any curiosities you keep to yourself. And yeah, it's a process. So sustainable change takes time.
And I was surprised to hear you say, you look at everything from the source materials, country of origin, the materials that go into things, all the way through the full life cycle of the product to how do we reuse it at the very end of its life. So how many points of intervention could somebody get involved in to start to improve that sustainability chain is really fascinating to me. I'm wondering how many of our listeners out there are thinking, geez, I never even thought of using mushrooms to make packaging. Like, I was like, stop the truck. Did you just say using mushrooms as the source material for packaging? That is very, very cool. Very, very.
Yes.
Right? I knew they used corn. I had no idea they used mushrooms for packaging. It's very interesting.
Yeah. There's this whole realm of biophilic design where you're using nature or inspired by the systems in nature to inform design, like man-made design. So that's a whole other area, a whole other podcast. But yeah, going back to looking at the life cycle of products, one thing that we have developed is different frameworks that are inspired by existing frameworks for, okay, we're looking at the raw material extraction or manufacturing, like what elements of this should we care about? And we initially started using the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which she's like a big proponent of pushing circular economy in design development. So looking at manufacturing specifically, like, where's the sourcing coming from? What materials do you use? Are they recycled materials? And all these little points of contact of making decisions that can have huge impacts in terms of the environmental impact for products. So it's very good to look at existing frameworks so that you're not starting from scratch, and you can understand within those frameworks, like, where people have succeeded and where there have been existing challenges. So
when you are working in that space with people, because a lot of your role specifically at Legrand as an analyst is to help educate and analyze, but also I imagine that part of your role, and you support 27 brands in doing this. That's not small. So that's really a lot of relationship management. That's a lot of helping other people keep their flame lit, if you will, right? Like if you've got fierce advocates inside that space and it's folks who are saying, this matters to me, I'm trying to do the right things, how do you help them to stay attached to their vision and what they're on this track for a reason. What do you do to support them from your role as a leader and analyst?
Yeah, that's another great question. From a Legrand perspective, we have sort of a structure in place for recognizing people who have gone above and beyond. Like maybe they did a research project and they found something really interesting and maybe piloted something for a product or packaging innovation. So we have a system in place where we can sort of nominate them for official recognition. So the executives can see that these individuals have really contributed and been a thought leader within our organization and really supported sustainability. So that's one small way that we can do that. And other ways is in our monthly or biweekly meetings, we sometimes nominate people to come in and present some of their ideas so they can share with other engineering or product management leaders what they have found so that they can talk about it. Oh, maybe that mushroom packaging can work for my lighting brand, or whatever it may be. They can share ideas and have an exchange of what the challenges might be, any questions. So just giving a platform to talk about things and share the innovations. I think that's helped to form that community that's really necessary to keep people motivated, know that it's not just them on a little island doing their thing. It's a bunch of people throughout all those 27 brands who have that common goal and are trying to achieve the same thing.
I love that so much. And I'm going to take this opportunity to pull through our shake-up factors today. I feel like I could have I have at least 10 of them on my page, but here's shake-up factor number 1. I love this. You're tracking who would find this relevant question. That is a super subtle nugget, friends. So if you're out there in this space where you're looking around at your plant or your if you don't work on the plant floor, maybe you work someplace else and you're making little notes about things that may need to change. Grab yourself a notebook, start tracking the question, who would find this thing that I'm noticing to be relevant? Because that's where you can start planting those seeds for the changes that you want to make, whether they are about sustainability or other matters. Shake-up factor number 2 is to have and hold that vision. Keep that flame alive in your own heart and your own mind, and go back to it over and over again when you're experiencing challenges or uncertainty. And then shake-up factor number 3 is to share ideas and discoveries publicly. Make a platform, let community emerge, because that's really how all these kind of cool changes that we want to see to help our Mother Earth along, whether you want to help the Mother Earth side or you just want to help the people in your facility to feel really great at work every day of the week. Let's make a space, make a platform where we can acknowledge and validate ideas, discoveries, and we can really and that. We can build upon what other people are saying. So take those out into the field, friends. If you're looking at sustainability, these are 3 hot tips right from the pro desk of Rene Parrinello at Legrand. It has been so fascinating talking with you. I'm now going to go walk around my house and look at what can I do to be more sustainable in my own home.
Unplug everything you're not using.
Thanks so much for being with us
Renee.
today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
The Manufacturing Shakeup is sponsored by the Connecticut Office of Manufacturing, produced by Maselli Productions and Gale Communications, and hosted by the Boulder Company.